All right, we're going to be looking at lesson 9.3, and we're going to work on simplifying and then solving radicals. And radical is just a fancy way of saying square root. Okay, so when we see the word radical here, we know that this will just be another word for square root. Okay? All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on simplifying radicals. Okay, so when we simplify a radical, we're basically just going to break it down. So in junior high, you probably learned a little bit about like a factor tree. So where you would break it down, and we use prime numbers. So like 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, etc. Okay? And remember, prime is just where we can multiply 1 times itself. So like 2 would be 1 times 2, 3, 1 times 3, 5, 1 times 5. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a factor tree, and we're going to break this guy down. So if I think about 75, I know it's divisible by 5 because it ends in a 5. And then when I divide it, I would get 15. Now, this guy right here is prime. We can't break him down anymore, okay? But 15 can be broken down to 3 times 5. So again, we want our end of our branches, or the ends, to be prime numbers. Now, I'm not going to break 5 down to 1 times 5 because that doesn't really change the value at all. So now the next rule we have is once we do our factor tree, we have one saying, pair them up and move them out, okay? So when I'm looking at this, I'm looking for pairs. So if I look here, pair of 5s, okay? So when I pair them up, those guys move to the outside of the square root. So 5 shows up on the outside. And then this poor little 3 right here, he doesn't have a buddy. If he doesn't have a buddy, he doesn't get to go outside. So he's stuck on the inside. So we're going to have 5 root 3, or 5 radical 3. Okay, so again, pair them up, move them out. All right, let's try again here. So I'm looking at 294. Okay, so I'm going to start by breaking down. I know 2 will go into 294. And I'm going to get 147 left over. Now, if I look here, I've got 14, and I've got a 7. Both of those are divisible by 7. So I'm going to go ahead and see if that'll be if I can divide that by 7, and I can. So I get 7 and 21. Now 21 will break to 7 times 3. Okay? So again, we're looking at prime numbers at the end of our branches. And we have one rule, pair them up, move them out. So in this case, I have a pair of 7s. So I'm going to pair them up, and I'm going to move them out. So when I do that, I'm going to get 7 on the outside. Now, when I look at this guy right here, I've got a 2 and a 3. Neither one of those are a pair, so they're both stuck on the inside. So on the inside there, I'm going to have 2 times 3, or I'm going to have a 6 left over. Okay, so everything we're doing is multiplication here. All right, so let's go down to the next one. Okay, so 256. I know 256 can be divisible by 2 because it's even. So I've got 2 and 128. So I know another 2 will come out. And when I divide that, I'm going to get 64. Okay, now at this point, 64, we can break into 8 times 8. There's a lot of other options you can do there. But once you've got a pair, so if I'm looking here, even though these aren't primes, once I have a pair, I can stop and say, you know what? Let's go ahead and move them out. Now, it's okay if you didn't catch it. Oops. And you broke this into 2 times 4, 2 times 2. Okay, and be the same thing here. 2 times 4, and then 2 times 2. So again, we're still pairing them up. So 2, 2, and 2. Well, think about that for a second. What is 2 times 2 times 2? That is 8. So it doesn't matter if I stop here and pair here, or if I go ahead and break it down to my primes and pair them up. 2 times 2 times 2 is still going to give me an 8. Now, we got to come back up here, because if I look at this guy right here, I also have a pair of 2s here. So in this case, everything paired up, everything's going to move on to the outside. Everything moves out. There'll be nothing left on the inside. Okay, so 2 times 8 is 16. Or if you just put the square root of 256 in your calculator, you'll get 16. So if everything pairs up and moves out, there's nothing left inside that square root. Okay, let's try number 4 here. Okay, so I know it's divisible by 5 because it ends in a 5. So I've got 5 and 49, and 49 will break to 7 times 7. Again, we're going to pair them up, pair up the 7s, and move it out. So I have a pair of 7s on the outside, and then I have this poor little 5 who didn't have a buddy. He's stuck left on the inside. So 7 root 5 is my answer there. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and start breaking down 216. So 216 was divisible by 2 because it ends in it's an even. So then I get 108. So then I'm going to take 2 out of that and get 54. And then you can keep dividing by 2 if you want. So we'll do 2 and 27. And then 27, when I divide it by 3, will give me a 9. And then the 9 will break to 3 and 3. Okay? So again, I'm looking at all of my ends here, and I'm going to pair them up and move them out. So I've got, if I look here, I got a pair of 2s and a pair of 3s. Okay? So again, pair them up and move them out. So the pairs move out. So 2 times 3 is 6 on the outside. And then on the inside, I have a 2 that didn't have a partner, and I have a 3 that didn't have a partner. Well, 2 times 3 is 6, and they're left over on the inside because they didn't have a partner. Okay. All right, and last one here we're going to look at, number 50. I'm going to break this down to 2 and 25, and then 5 times 5. Now, again, your breakdowns will be different, and that's okay. We are still just looking at the ends, so please, please, please don't use anything that you've broken down. So if you break down the 50 and the 25, make sure that we're not using those in our final answer, okay? And then we're going to pair them up and move them out. So I have a pair of 5s that moved out, and I have a 2 left over on the inside. All right, that concludes the notes for lesson 9-3.